Guys, today's episode is brought to you by Maspeth Squash. It's an open-air, outdoor, true steel-walled squash court located in New York City. It's changing the game, making it accessible to all, and also the outdoor squash tournament is still going strong. So come swing by, crack a beer, and enjoy some good fucking squash, and have a good time.
All right, welcome back to the Rally Report. Got probably one of the smartest and busiest players on the tour right now, truly balancing that work and athlete lifestyle, who casually also does, TED Talks on the side. No big deal. But one of the top players from India, welcome, Ramit Tandon. How are you doing?
Thank you. That's a very kind introduction, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Did I pronounce your last name correctly? Because I was meaning to ask you before I started.
On points. It was perfect. Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. But yeah, what's been going on your end? Have you been watching the CIB Open recently?
Yes, I have. I have been following the CIB. A great match yesterday I watched Ali play Mustafa Asal last night. So I really enjoyed that. Currently, I'm in Delhi. I'm actually flying to the US tonight from Delhi. So I've been here for the past couple of days, and with Squash TV and the stuff PSA is doing to promote the event, it's amazing that you can be sitting in some part of the world and still catch the action. Unfortunately, I couldn't play it because I've been a little injured since the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about this. Yeah.
So I took
Is everything all right, or what's going? Is there a little niggle, or?
No, it was a bit more than a little niggle. It was. It happened to me in practice just before the Commonwealth Games started, and since then, it's in my lower back, and I haven't been feeling the best. So I had to just take some time off and make sure I sort it out completely before I play half-heartedly. If you're not 100% at this level of sport, you're not going to do justice to yourself and your team. And it was a hard decision for me, and that's why I kind of decided to take some time off, withdraw from the CIB, so I can head to the US now, and there's a string of events there. I'm playing 3 events over there, so I could have a good preparation going into the US.
And you feeling like 100% right now, or are you still managing?
Yes, I mean, pain-wise, there's no pain. I don't feel the injury anymore, touch wood, but every day is a new day, and obviously I haven't tested myself. I always tell people, practice is one thing, and getting through routines is one thing, but obviously in the match situation, the way you throw your body around is a little different. So I haven't tested it in a match environment or in a tournament environment yet. But hopefully I'm definitely feeling better, and I'm hopeful it will hold up in the upcoming events.
So NetSuite's first up for you, right? Did I get that correct?
Oh yes, NetSuite is first up, yeah.
And that one's the best of 3, right?
That is best of 3. Yes, that is best of 3.
Is that gonna? How do you feel about the best of 3?
I haven't played a lot of best of 3 events. I think I played 2. I played the NetSuite a couple of years ago, which was best of 3, and I played one in Nonce a few years ago, which was best of 3. I'm a fan of the best of 5 because obviously I've been playing that since I was a kid. But I do understand the excitement and the edginess that comes along with the best of 3 because it goes too quick. So obviously you got to see both perspectives of things. As a player, obviously there's a bit more pressure in the best of 3 because you don't have time to recover. You have to be on your A game from the very first point. And as a spectator, obviously a best of 3. Like even sometimes as a spectator, I prefer a best of 3 over a best of 5 because it's more fast, it's more furious. People don't take a while to get into the game. They start. You'll have these amazing rallies from the very first or second point because no one takes it lightly. But in the best of 5, you will still have an odd match where people are getting into it slowly and they're testing each other. But in the best of 3, you won't see any of that. So I can understand from a spectator point of view why a best of 3 is kind of important as well to kind of see how our sport. At the end of the day, it's all trial and error, right? Especially a sport like squash, which does not have the recognition like tennis or cricket in India or basketball in the US. We need to kind of try different things to see what's the best fit to kind of grow our sport.
So talking about new formats, I don't know if you've caught on to it, but the CIB is doing this new thing about 4 reviews instead of their usual thing. How did you see that? And as a player, how do you feel about that?
I think this was a decision. I don't think it's the CIB. Every platinum event moving forward is going to follow this video review system. I think the decision was made because the PSA feels like the reviews, having one per game, really slows down the flow of play, and they want things to move faster. Also, sometimes in a single game, there are a few calls which you feel have gone against you, and you wish you had another review. But since you're restricted to one, so from a player's perspective, I don't think it changes a lot. I think it's more freedom to the player, because now at 10-all in the first game, if I feel like it was a horrible call, I can still review that again, even if I've used up my review. So I think, I mean, see, at the end of the day, a match is not won or lost based on the review or two reviews, right? At the end of the day, it is just an addition to the game. And I feel that's how most of the players look at it. So I don't think anyone gets into it that deeply. Whatever the rules are, I mean, they're going to follow and play by it. So, yeah.
And are you bringing? Because I also know that you can bring a coach with you now, right? To these tournaments, and they can coach you in between games.
I think coaching is back. You can bring your coaches who can help you in between games. So we're pretty much gone back to what squash was pre-COVID. Obviously, COVID was a tough time, and we were kind of trying to restrict the number of people at events and restrict player access with coaches and family and outsiders to kind of contain the players to a certain form of a bubble. Now I think things have opened up a little bit, and people are comfortable traveling with families and coaches, and which is big, because I think coaching is a big part. You know, like if you're spending a lot of your time training with someone, it is important that the person is part of your test or your exam, right? Which is the match day. So I'm glad that.
Yeah, it looked lonely out there last season, where you guys all just had to sit alone and ponder for like 20 seconds. But I kind of wanted to talk to you, because you did allude to it earlier about how you were watching the Asal and Farag match, which I think caused rumbles yesterday after that. I wanted to get your take on that match, because that really did. I think it was like a big split down. I don't know if it's a exact 50-50 split on how people felt about that match, but just wanted to hear your thoughts on it.
I mean, see, I think Ali Farag and Mustafa Asal are two of the best players in the world right now, and what's very interesting when they play, it's actually one of my favorite matchups to watch, is because they are amongst the best or the best in the world, but they have different styles of play, which makes it very interesting, because Ali, obviously being lean, moves the ball around very well and floats the ball around. There's not a lot of power in his game, while Asal is the complete opposite, a very powerful player.
All power, yeah.
And I think watching that contrast is always exciting, because it's like cat and mouse squash, right? When Asal is kind of being more aggressive, Ali is kind of just hanging in there. And then when Ali starts moving him around, Asal starts panicking, because obviously he knows endurance-wise Ali is still fitter and is probably going to outlast him. So he's trying to close down the match. So I feel it's also the style of players that they are makes that matchup very interesting for me to kind of see the strategic part of it. You know, like what strategy Asal is using, what strategy Ali is using, and obviously in terms of quality of the match, it was an amazing match. I mean, obviously the hot conditions, outdoor court, does not make things easy, but the way these guys were moving and playing was definitely very, very impressive.
So you didn't find anything fishy on either parties? You just thought it was a good match to watch?
I think see, at the end of the day, it's a game, and squash is a contact sport to a certain extent. It's not like rugby or American football, but we still are on the same court. And there is going to be contact, and there are going to be areas where you're going to go through your opponent, or your opponent comes in your way. And at the end of the day, you've got to accept that it's going to happen a little bit, but it should not eat away from the brilliance of the match. You know, I feel a lot of the times when I read some reviews, or I see people commenting on Twitter, they only talk about this bit, you know, this part of the match. But, you know, there was more to the match than that, you know, so... Which
is what I'm trying to do to you right now, just to get that snippet out of you.
So I also believe, you know, that there's a lot of good parts of the match that people could look at and learn from. Obviously, there are times where some players intentionally put their body in the way, and this does happen, and I think that's something the referees... I think it's a question, if you ever end up interviewing one of the referees, I think that's something you can put across to him. And I think it's something they got to kind of look out for a little bit. But overall, I think it should not override all the other good stuff these two athletes have. You know, they put on an amazing show for the audience, and you know, a bit of body contact should not eat away from that.
What a great diplomatic way of handling that question.
Oh man, I'm Indian.
But,
diplomacy is in our blood.
All right, well, I'm gonna switch it up here, but I just want to hear about your off season this summer. I know it was unfortunate that you had that injury with Commonwealth, but I feel like is this your first? Like, how was the off season prep? Were you even able to really have an off season?
Yeah, so this year, for us, the Commonwealth Games and Asian Games is once every 4 years, and usually when we have those events, there's not much of an off-season for us because it is pretty much towards the end of the off-season. Normally the games are like the Commonwealth was in July, August, and then season starts in September. So you pretty much don't stop because you've got to keep training till July, August for the games. And then by the time you're done with the games, you have like 2 weeks before the first event of the season starts. So I don't think there was any off season, but the weeks I had in between, unfortunately for me this time, it was more about recovery and rehab because there was no off season for me up till the Commonwealth, and I got injured in the Commonwealth Games, and then I was just kind of chasing time to kind of make it back to the start of the season, to the first couple of events. Usually I normally have a 8 to 12 week cycle in the off seasons where I like going through a lot of rigorous training. But obviously this off season, I didn't have the time to kind of do that with the events and with the injury. So that's why my start of the season has been a little delayed. I haven't played much yet. There have been a bunch of tournaments. I've just played one, and then I withdrew from the next. And the last couple of weeks I have been putting in some more work to kind of make up for what I missed out, what I would have done in the off season. So hopefully it will pay off in the coming events. Because having said, I think one big change on the PSA has been the increasing number of events. I think if you look at the calendar now, every week the other.
I've noticed, yeah.
So obviously there's less time to kind of find these windows, 4 week, 5 week windows where you can put in the training. So it makes things a little complicated, but at the same time it shows our sport is growing and then there are more people investing in the game to kind of put up such events on a weekly basis.
Yeah, no, it's really nice to see like there's more of, I feel like there has been no middle ground between Challenger and Platinum, but I feel with this season they're adding a lot more bronze level, gold level tournaments, which is always great to see. But
right.
Ramy, I want to hear about how you feel. How are you feeling about this season right now? Are you a bit nervous because of the injuries? Or are you like very excited? In a way, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly certain you're up in the highest your highest ranking.
Yeah, obviously, the reason we play the sport is because you're always excited about it. I think when you follow something that you really like doing in life, what we call a passion, there is going to be a certain sense of excitement. At the same time, with excitement comes a bit of fear, because when something means a lot to you, you want to be good at it. And if you're not, it's going to hurt you. There is no lying about that. And it's not only squash. I think you can take that in any aspect of life. And something means something to you. It could be great or it could be painful. And it's the same thing when it comes to squash. In terms of foreseeing the season, I think we get so tied up and busy in that day-to-day schedule in terms of training, in terms of what's next for us, in terms of our scheduling as what we want to do and which events we want to play, that we don't really look at it. Like I've never sat down and looked at it. I want my season to go this way, Right now I'm focusing on my next event. Like I have 3 events lined up, but my focus is on the next one. And once that's done, I go to the next event, right? And I think we just go day by day in training, event by event. There are a lot of hiccups that come along the way, like the injury, and obviously then I'm not going to think of what's going to happen in terms of my season. I'm more focused on recovering, being 100% so I can make it back to court. And I think that is the smaller goals that we set on a daily basis. If you try to kind of check that off, eventually when you end the season, you can look back and say, okay, this was a good season or a bad season. But I think looking at the end goal today would put too much pressure on the athlete, and then you start thinking too much about how to reach that goal instead of just focusing on the daily things that you should do to kind of get there. So I don't think too far ahead when it comes to what I want to do at the end of the season. And obviously, I want to go up in the rankings. I want to crack the top 20, get up there, and all of that. Yes, it goes without saying, but my focus mostly lies on my daily preparation and what I could do to become a better player each day.
Is there a strategic way you pick out events you want to play, or Is it just you sign up as soon as you see
I mean,
one?
some people do that. For me, it comes more from the heart. I'm not one of those. I don't use my academic skill set to sit down and run statistical analysis and say like, okay, I think this is the right way to go about it. I like certain events. I like the US a lot because, as I mentioned, it's second home. So I like playing all the events in the US. There's certain events, certain parts of the world I like. I like going there. There's certain parts of the world I hate and I dislike going there. So for me, it comes more from the heart. It's never. I've never made a call strategically as this is good for me or this is bad for me. Every event I go to, I want to perform well and I want to kind of achieve something. But I never look at it in terms of this would be good for me or this would be bad for me.
I see. This one is just enough ranking points for me so you don't do all that thinking.
I mean, see, obviously, I play the game because I want to play the bigger events.
Yeah.
I don't want to play small events and be. I mean, at one point in time, you have to reach a certain ranking. But once you reach a certain ranking, like I'm not one of those who say I want to go back to the smaller events and I feel good about winning some of them or performing well. At the end of the day, the goal is to perform well at the big events. I think if you're playing the sport, that's where you want to be. I would say in tennis terms, it's like saying I will not play the Wimbledon and I will go and play some other grass tournament and go win it. It would mean nothing, right? Like you rather perform well at the Wimbledon. And I think I look at it this way. I mean, every player has his own ways of looking at things. Some players kind of look at some smaller events to make points instead of the bigger ones. But for me, I rather do it big or not do it, So
go big or go home.
Go big or go home.
I got it. So I kind of want to rewind the clock here a bit because I think your story to becoming professional is just so wild to me. And there's a big ESPN article on you regarding about this bit, how you went from a hedge fund analyst in the heart of New York City to transitioning into professional. But yeah, I just wanted to hear, honestly, I wanted to hear this whole story and what was that exact turning point. And, I have a lot of follow-up questions as well about like, why not go straight professional at the time and all that. But yeah, if you could just give the whole layout.
I'll keep it brief because the story is a long story. The time span is like a few years, so I'm not going to take you through my day-to-day years. But to keep it short, so I graduated college. And at that point in time, obviously, when you're a senior, you're kind of hunting for jobs, and that's the normal part. All my friends around me, they were applying to these investment banks and hedge funds and different institutions trying to look for a job. And for me, obviously, with the level of squash I was playing in college squash, and I'd already played a few PSA events and beaten some highly ranked players while I was in college, there was always a thought like he's probably going to play professionally. And for me, it was a debate going on. I was like, well, I want to play squash. I love playing squash. At the same time, I put in 4 years of academic work. 90% of the college is kind of applying for jobs. That's the normal route. Why don't I just go down that route, then kind of do something different? And there was that debate going on. And as a person, I like playing things very safe. I'm not one of those guys okay, I'm going to take this risk and stuff. So I said, okay, let me just start the application process. Let me start networking. Let me start kind of applying and seeing where things go. If I get a job, great, like a decent job where I would like to work. And if I don't get something decent, I'll go play pro. So I got into the process.
Perfect,
yeah, obviously squash and finance being so, I mean, since you're from New York, you would know how interlinked the two industries are. A lot of people in finance do play squash. And fortunately for me, because I did play squash, the job hunt got kind of easier because at the clubs I was playing, I was meeting people who were kind of owners of these hedge funds and hedge fund managers, and things ended up working out pretty smoothly. I didn't have to really get through the rat race and kind of find a way in. I had a lot of opportunities. I ended up getting a job at a hedge fund called Birchgrove Capital, where the founder of Birchgrove, he was a Columbia alum, and he's a big squash fan. I mean, he sponsors the TOC as well. So I ended up meeting him at one of the clubs, and we had connected at Columbia as well before. So we ended up chatting and stuff. I went into the office, and he's like, well, you know what? If you want to work here, you can work here. And at that point also I was like, well, and at the same time I was seeing the struggle. But a lot of my friends who were like really doing these investment banking interviews and really trying to kind of get a job. And to me, it came slightly easier. And I was like, this is a great opportunity. I didn't really have to do that much to get here. I'm not going to kind of throw it away and waste it. So I go into work thinking, okay, worst case, 3 months down the road, I quit, I go back to squash. So that's how the whole hedge fund thing started for me. Even like the first day when I went to work, I was like on the fence, like, is this what I want to do? Or, but what ended up happening, a lot of people I worked with in finance, a lot of people at my fund, they were crazy about squash. We would get done work and I would have time to go practice. I would have time to play.
So you did consistently practice during this period of time when you were working?
I mean, not like a professional. I would not say I was putting in like 2 or 3 sessions. I didn't have a coach. I didn't do any fitness. But the biggest thing that happened during that point in time was that Ramy Ashour was based in New York. And he was looking for a training partner. And that's how so my training would pretty much be with him every evening. So we played probably 4 or 5 times a week. And with him, like I think when you're training with him, you don't need to do fitness. He takes care of everything. The 1 hour, 1.5 hours I coach with him covers all those aspects. And I think he was a big reason I was able to maintain my game to a certain level while I was working. So that's how my routine would be. I would probably wake up early. We would start early around 7:30 a.m. And I would get done by 6:37 p.m. And then I would head over to the athletic club where me and Ramy would practice for another 2 hours. And I would be home by 10:30, 11. And that would be my Monday to Friday, and weekends in New York, you know how that goes. So, so I did that for about 2.5 years, and we had the Tournament of Champions in New York, where
I'm glad. Sorry to interrupt you, but this is 2016, right?
Yes, yeah.
Because I think this really put you on the map, in my opinion.
Yes, so that tournament went pretty well for me. All the people I worked with were there watching, and they were sponsoring the event. Birch Grove was sponsoring the event as well, and they had a few meetings with the organization committee post that, and there was a big question my CEO was getting asked, like, why is he working? Why don't you just let him play? And people were blaming him for not letting me play, but that was not true. It was coming from me. So he actually called me to his office, saying like, why don't you play? And at that point in time, I started getting a bit of perspective on, maybe I should give it a go. Maybe it's something, it might be too late, because at the end of the day, an athlete life is very limited. It's short term. It's not like a desk job where you can go back to it and do it till you're 50, 60. It's something that you got to do when you're young. And I felt if I keep sitting on the desk, I'm not going to be able to maintain a level of squash, and I'm going to be too far behind the rest to eventually catch up. So while all that was going on, work-wise also, I kind of felt, I think when you first start a job, the learning curve is really steep. You're picking up new things and you're enjoying what you do. And obviously after 2 years, 2.5 years, you're just doing the same stuff again and again. And for me, I reached a point where it just got a little boring, where I felt like, it's the same analysis, it's the same thing every day. And I don't think I'm learning anything new now. So I had those days as well. And I think it was the right timing in terms of the combination of missing squash. I would be watching all these tournaments. And all of them are my friends, Ali and Muhammad. I've seen them in the juniors, and they've been rivals through the juniors. And I'm watching them on Squash TV playing these big events. And I'm sitting at an office desk, and I'm wondering, like, what? This would have been so much fun. So while I was missing the game, I was also getting a little bored at work, to be honest. And I was like, well, same number crunching, same models. I reached a point where I didn't even have to, redo the models. I was just changing the financials because it was already edited in and had everything. And I was like, well, you know what? Maybe I should kind of take the next step in life and give it a go for a few years and see how things play out. So eventually, I think I started playing a few smaller events while I was working, because I kind of knew I'm taking the step before I actually took the step. I was like, okay, I'm kind of going to do this. And there was a tournament in the US, in the Hamptons, where I was like, okay, since I'm going to do this, let me go play this and come back. And so I gradually moved, but I think I've played my first professional event closer to 2018, maybe December. It was in Bombay. They gave me the wild card, and I was ranked 400s in the world or whatever at that point in time. Because we had in 2018 the Asian Games and the Commonwealth Games, which is big for India. And I thought it would
which
be
also took the bronze medal, right?
Right. I thought it would be the perfect time to jump into squash, so I could catch up in the rankings with my other Indian peers to make the team and then hopefully win a medal. So I think end 2017, early 2018 is when I kind of made the leap into professional squash. Yeah.
It's it's just such a good story. I know, I'm sure you've said that story so many times, but I just had to have you reiterate it. But do you, looking back on it, is there a part of you that kind of regrets not missing out on that 2-year period to play squash? Like, do you ever look back on it and be like, fuck, like if I had used that 2 years, who knows what could have happened? Or are you satisfied with the route you've taken?
I mean, see, I think if you look at it just in terms of squash, right? Obviously, the smarter way would be to just go professional right out of college, right? If you look at just a squash player point of view. If you look at a life point of view, I moved on in life to squash, yes. But the 2 years definitely shaped me as an individual. It definitely brought a lot of different aspects to me in terms of my personality, in terms of who I am today, which I wouldn't have had if I didn't have those 2 years. So obviously when someone who's a squash critic would kind of sit down and look at my journey, they would be like, you know what? He should have done this. He's not wrong when he says that. But if you look at a life critic who sits down and looks at the experiences I've had through life, would probably be like, you know what? What he did was probably helped him grow as an individual beyond sport, And I look at it that way. I think what I learned, the connections I made, the people I met while I was working, the friends I made in New York while I was there.
Those weekends. Those weekends are...
The weekends, yeah.
Or like price.
I mean, the weekend is a separate part, but the connections and the friends I made are friends I have for life. Some of them are my bestest friends, even today. And apart from that, I think there's a lot you learn from working. Like you understand. Sure. I think at some point, even most squash players go back to work. It's not like tennis or basketball where you do amazing at it and then you just chill for the rest of your life. I think there is a part two to our lives. And I feel it was important for me to experience what working feels like, what being under pressure, having a boss, getting stuff done feels like, the office environment and all of that. I think it was very helpful to me in terms of my growth as an individual. So overall, if I was to go back and do it any other way, I would probably still do it the same way. I don't have any regrets from that standpoint. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about, so it seemed like you had that period of time to train with Ramy, and the guy is absolute legend, but also a very mysterious player of how he operates with training and all that. If you could tell us a little bit, any stories, anything about him that was about that unique experience you've had.
I'll tell you a really funny story. The first time someone connected me to Ramy, his name is Satya. He's the assistant pro at the Harvard Club. He's from India. And Ramy was preparing for the World Championships in Qatar. It was in Qatar, and he had just had a knee surgery, and at that point in time, he was practicing with Satya because he wasn't fit enough to play. But before going to Qatar, he wanted to do a practice match to see whether he should go for the event or not. So I have Ramy Ashour call me up saying that my fitness coach is flying down. My team, he has 2 or 3 coaches are flying down. They want to see me play a practice match, based on which I'm going to take a decision whether I want to go for the World Championships or not. And we can only play at 11:30 tomorrow. And I have a midterm. My midterm runs from 10 to 12:30. And I'm like, can we do 1? Can we do 2? Can we do 8? He's like, no. My fitness coach is coming from Florida. He's landing at this time. He has a flight at this time. My flight to Qatar is booked for this time. This is the only time we can do it. And Ramy is someone I've looked up to since I was a kid. I used to have a poster of him on my wall. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, dude, what am I going to do? Like, I have a midterm. And then Ramy Ashour is calling me to play. So I didn't have the heart to say no to him. I told him, okay, I will be there. And luckily, it's one of those classes where you have 3 midterms, but the best 2 get chosen and they drop 1.
Wow, that's a huge gamble considering how safe you take it usually.
Yeah. I mean, at that point in time, I was like, you know what? It's Ramy. This might not matter. So I start the midterm, and halfway through, I see the time, and I'm like, okay, I'm running out of time here. I just went like A, B, C, D through the multiple choice, handed in my paper. Even the professor was looking at me in shock, and I dash off straight to the club, and that's the first time me and Ramy trained together. We practiced together, and I beat him like 5-0, killed him. He wasn't
No big
moving
deal.
well. No big deal. He wasn't moving well. Obviously, he's very talented and he hits the ball very well, but his movement was off. And he was asking me in the shower after we played, "What do you think? Should I go?" And I was like, "Nah, man, no way. You're not going to win. Like, and it means nothing to you if you don't win. He's not going there to participate. He's Ramy Ashour."
Yeah, he's in it to win it. Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, I also don't think I should go." And his coaches told him not to go and stuff like that. And great. And I said, "Anyways, man, whatever you decide, good luck. And if you're around, let's train more. So do let me know whatever you decide." And I had to head back to college. So I head back to college, and I think his flight was late in the night and stuff. So I wake up the next day, get a text message from him. "Hey, man, thanks for the hit. I've decided I'm going to go to Qatar, and let's see how things play out." So Ramy Ashour reaches Qatar, and I'm talking to my other buddies like Saurav and stuff like that who are at the event. And I was telling them, I practiced with him, like, "Nah, man, he's gonna lose first round, and this is gonna happen, that is gonna happen." And he struggles through the first few rounds and gets better as the tournament progresses. Ends up winning the tournament. He's world champion and comes back to New York. So I mean, I've trained with him 3 or 4 years in New York. I've been through his injuries where he's won events and gotten injured and won events, and I've seen him at his prime before events, and I've seen him when he's injured. And to me, the whole thing is still a mystery. I have never understood how he's able to go from getting back into the game to that top form in a matter of a couple of weeks.
Makes no sense. It makes no sense.
I don't get it, but I think that's the beauty about him. He's so natural and so naturally gifted in squash that, there's no answer to how he does it, right? Like certain things, there's no answer to it. And I think Ramy is one of those where you don't have an answer to. For example, when he plays, the stuff he does in court, no one knows how he does it. And the shots he hits, no one knows how he hits them. The way he swings his racket, the way he moves his wrist, no one knows how he's doing it. It's the same thing when it comes to his preparation. No one knows how he's preparing and what he's doing. But the only one thing is, I think mentally he's very unique. He's very strong. His mindset and his approach to the game and matches is very unique. And I think that is one of his biggest strengths. For him to be able to do or create these miracles, as people say, like, in terms of his career in squash, it stems from that, because I've really seen him overcome, big issues just mentally, the way he thinks about it and the way he approaches it. I think that is one aspect of him, I would say, that people don't talk about. I think that is the stuff behind the good things that we see. It stems from that.
Mm-hmm. It's actually, it just dawned on me that, that if he had listened to you in that shower and not go to Qatar, you could have costed him a world championship.
It wasn't only me. I think it's his team of coaches and the fitness coach, and everyone told him, I don't think you should play the event. But yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, right? Like, he could be that way in practice, and he could go 2 days later and be a different player at the tournament.
Just absolutely,
in the head, yeah.
Oh my God, that is wild. So you started your professional journey 2017, 2018, and at this time you're still based in New York and operating there.
Yes, I was mostly I was in New York, pretty much in New York until the pandemic hit.
If the pandemic didn't hit, would you say you would have stayed in New York and trained there, or
New York has gone through many phases. When I was when I had just come to New York for college, which was 2011. I saw the growth phase where a lot of players from all over the world based themselves in New York, and it became an amazing training hub. We had, obviously, the US players were there, like Chris Gordon was around, Julian Illingworth was around, Alistair Walker was there, Ryan Caskelly used to train in Greenwich, not too far away, Zach Alexander was there, Campbell Grayson was there, Ramy Ashour was there. So there was a point in time where my worst hit in the city would be someone ranked 40 in the world. Would be the worst player I was playing with or training with. And then there was a phase where, towards the end of my time in New York, Ramy kind of retired. Campbell moved to Boston. A bunch of these guys kind of retired and moved away. Ryan retired. So at one point in time, it got a little difficult for me to find players to train with. There weren't a lot of semi-professional players who were kind of part-time pro and they're coaching and stuff, but I didn't have that top 20, top 30, top 40 kind of level players to train with. So I think if the pandemic didn't hit, I was kind of close to anyways thinking about, I don't think this is the right place for me to be and I need to move and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if I would have stayed on, but the pandemic made things easier. It was like New York was, I think the pandemic hit the US before it hit India. So I was like, okay, it's getting bad here. Let me go to India. And I reach India, and India gets just horrible after that. So, yeah, that was basically it.
I see. And is India now long term for you, or do you see yourself moving around still?
I mean, we do travel a lot because of the events. So what I normally like doing, like for example, I'm heading to the US a few days before the tournament. I put in 7 to 10 days of training, and then I play the event. So that's what I normally do. But yeah, home is India. My base will be here. I'm not going to rent out in another apartment in some other part of the world and move that way. But I will spend stints of weeks or maybe a month or something training elsewhere. Yeah, I could do that.
I'm going to now transition into the quick fire segment.
Right.
And we're going to start this off with building the perfect player. And I know I mentioned this every episode, but there's absolutely no shame in you picking yourself for any of these answers. Yeah. I'm going to start this off with best, and you can also only use active players right now when you decide.
Okay, got it.
Best forehand in the game.
Best forehand in the game. That's a tough one. I would say, by best, you mean technically the best or the most dangerous?
It's completely subjective to what your opinion is.
I would go with Asal right now.
Asal, best forehand. And then best backhand?
Best backhand in the game would be tough. That is tough.
A lot of good backhands out there.
Ali Farag.
Okay. And then best movement?
Ali Farag, hands down.
Yep. And then best mental game?
Oof. Best mental. Mohammad Sharbagi.
Oh, that's a good one.
Beast mode.
Yeah. So yeah, there you have it. Just built Ramit's perfect player, even though he literally just used all top 5 players.
Yeah.
Gonna move on to the actual segment of the quick fire. Start this off. Favorite ref on tour for Ramit?
I like John Massarella. Yeah.
Is there a particular reason why?
I think he's the most experienced of the lot, and he's been around for quite some time. And I think because he's refed us so many times, we kind of have an understanding. Because squash is very subjective. Your definition of let or stroke could be different from mine. But if you have someone who's been around for so many years, you get his definition of what he calls a let and a stroke. So I think it's easier on the players when he's refing.
That's a good point. Best dressed player on tour?
That is best dressed player on tour. Off court or on court? Or
let's do both, if you have an answer.
Both? Okay.
Yeah.
Off court, I think Miguel is into fashion a little bit, He brings out the white pants and stuff like that. So maybe I give it to Miguel. Because he puts in the effort, he deserves it. On court, I'll stick to Technifiber since they sponsor me. I would say I would choose a Technifiber player. Maybe it could be girls anyone as well, right?
Yeah, anyone. Okay.
She has all like the warrior princess vibe going, so yeah, we'll give it to her.
How about? Yeah, I think you're gonna like this one. Worst dressed player on tour.
It used to be Simon Rosner, but I have to choose an active player. The worst dressed now could be Diego sometimes.
Oh, you don't like his Adidas apparel?
I do most of the time, but sometimes he gets into these like funky colors and stuff, and then I'm like,
questionable.
Yeah.
How about who would you like to see in the commentators booth?
From the squash guys, I mean, Chris Gordon normally does do a bit of commentary, so I find him a little interesting when he does that. A very interesting one for me would be Saurav. I think he really gets into the game and really analyzes the game really well. So I feel like in terms of adding more value, I think he would be an interesting person to have on board. So yeah, Saurav would be a good one. And
then if you're competing in softball doubles, who would you want as your partner for both?
I'll stick to my... I mean,
Team
moving
India.
Joshna, because we were supposed to play the Commonwealth Games together. And then the men Harinder, because we were supposed to play the Commonwealth Games together.
And then, what are your thoughts on nicknames for PSA players?
Interesting. Borderline racist at times. But I think but I feel I know where it stems from. I know the intent behind it, so I know they are not.
It comes from a good place, but sometimes it misses.
But I mean, I have friends in college who do find it a little like, why do you call XYZ? Why do you call that player that? So there are questions that are being raised every now and then, but having known how these guys come up with the nicknames, I give them the benefit of the doubt. Or I know for a fact it comes from good. So.
Yeah, and then do they have a nickname for you, or
no? Fortunately, not yet.
Okay. Even in your college days, they didn't have a nickname for you?
It's been a while. Graduated a few years ago. I don't think so, no.
Okay. How about thoughts on coaching? Is that something you'd ever dabble in the future?
I don't think so. I can't see myself being patient enough to coach and invest time in understanding someone else's game the way I kind of put in the work in my own game. And that's a big part of why I want to do the education and the finance bit and all of that, so I don't have to get into coaching. At the same time, I don't mind mentorship. I feel there's a difference between mentorship and coaching. I like giving back. Obviously, I've been playing squash for close to 20 years now. The experience I had through college in squash, if that could benefit someone else, I'm happy to share that. I'm happy to share what I've learned along the way, but that's very different from coaching. I think a coach is someone who kind of gets involved with you beyond just sharing knowledge, and right. I'm happy to share, but I don't think I have the patience to get to the point where I'm trying to teach you how to do it and make sure you do it. I think that's where the coach aspect comes in. Yeah.
And what's your favorite tournament of the year and least favorite tournament of the year?
I love the Tournament of Champions in New York.
That's it, yeah.
It is amazing. I've been going there since I was a freshman in college, first to watch and then eventually to play. So that's very close to my heart. Obviously, the ones we have in India, we have one. We used to have a bigger one at the Cricket Club of India. I used to like that as well. Least favorite tournament, it's a tough one. Least favorite. I haven't played. So the tournaments people have told me aren't the best. I haven't really played. I would say the ones in Pakistan. I would say the ones in Pakistan because I cannot go there. For the visa issues and the problems. Yeah. So I haven't experienced it. I've heard they host it amazingly and stuff, but for me it's my least favorite because I don't have the option to participate.
Most underrated player on tour?
Ooh. This is a really hard one. I don't think there's anyone underrated because right now, the difference between the players is not a lot. Rankings wise, someone could be 1 and someone could be 20. You look at Qatar, for example, if you're following the Qatar Classic, the kind of upsets. So I feel like when you're competing on the circuit and you're seeing the players around, someone might not be top 5 in the world, but you do see the talent and you do have respect for that player. I think the outside world doesn't see it as much, but when you're within the sport, you know how talented XYZ is, and sometimes it's a matter of time before he makes the jump. So from that perspective, I think it's very hard to kind of say that someone is underrated. And even today, with sport, you can't underrate anyone. The minute you underrate someone, you're just going to lose to them. You have to take everyone seriously. So I can't really think of anyone I would say underrated.
I just do want to tell you, I'm fairly certain someone has mentioned your name in previous episodes as an underrated player.
Yes, so that's very kind of
but,
kind of. But yeah, there are a lot of players I feel who have a lot of potential and have not hit that. And I think the truth about sport is some players will end up not hitting their potential. But as an athlete, as someone who's been around the game so many years, I'm not. I'm smart enough to see that in the player and be like, this guy is dangerous and he could be good. So I don't think you will underrate anyone. Also, when it comes to professional sport, I think in this day and age, with people having so many different career options, if you aren't gifted to a certain extent, if you don't have that X factor in you, no one is going to step into it. Especially a sport like squash, So most of the players who are involved in squash, they do see some future and they have some aspiration. So it gets very difficult to kind of pick.
How about most overrated player on tour?
Most overrated. That's a tough one as well, because if someone is ranked in a certain place, it is because they have done something to get there.
God damn, that's taking the diplomatic way out on this one.
Good answer.
How about I switch this up?
Yeah, I'm interested to ask you
damn.
As the most overrated.
Most overrated player right now?
It's not easy because I think I have a lot of respect.
Putting me on the hot seat. Usually
Yeah.
This is a flipperoo here. God damn it. Most overrated player on tour.
What are the answers you have been getting?
Usually people refuse to answer. They do the classic cop-out. They do the cop-out, or I've had a couple people say Miguel.
Oh, really? Wow.
Miguel Rodriguez. You know what? I got an overrated player for you. For the audience out there. I'm going to go with Omar Mossad.
Really?
At this stage of his career, I'm not saying I think he is an overrated player.
Right.
Are you going to return the favor and answer the question?
No.
How about I switch it up? How about I switch it up for you and go, who do you dislike playing the most?
Who I dislike playing?
Who gives you the hardest time?
I haven't played Ali recently.
Mm-hmm.
He's not someone I've since he's become number one, played him. But I like playing him a lot because of the style of play. I think it's very free flowing. At the same time, I hate playing him because the kind of player Ali is that he really pushes you to the point where it is painful, whether you win or lose. You feel it physically, and you. He elongates the rallies. It's like a slow death if you lose, and if you're to win, you really have to put in the work. So I feel Ali is someone I in terms of if you're trying to beat him, I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy feeling the pain playing him, and he gets some crazy balls back, and it's very painful. At the same time, I do enjoy the free-flowing squash and the way he moves around you and the way you play, and you've got to respect some great squash. Yes,
right.
Yeah, I find it very annoying.
College and junior rival, and also took him down in 2016. Farag.
Apart from that, I watch him play a lot now, and it's not me. I speak to other players as well, and he is very annoying to play. He gets balls back, and he's just there in your face all the time, and you're like, go away. So yeah, I would give that to him. Yeah,
that's solid. I'm gonna do a couple life-related ones just to get to know you a little bit better, but. Ramy, if you're shipwrecked on an island, all your basics are covered. What are the two things you bring with you?
My music and
big music fan.
Some food.
Food's covered.
Or I can find
food's covered.
Food.
Yeah.
So probably I would bring some music and my computer. I think my computer could help me do a lot of things. Yeah.
Best and worst purchase you've ever made?
Best and worst purchase I have ever made. Worst would be some hoodie. Not worth the money I spent on it.
Questionable ones.
Questionable ones. The best would probably be best purchase I've made. It's funny, the good things you don't really remember. The bad came to me in a second. The best would be something that I use on a regular basis. Like I feel like, I do end up buying things that I don't use. And then later on when I look at them and they're lost around, I feel they are the worst. But I think the Whoop was a smart purchase. I used to use it and it came in very handy for my training and stuff. So that's something I would put like as
Do you still use it? Do you still use it or no?
Every now and then. So now I'm using the Apple iWatch.
Yeah.
I used to use the Whoop up until now, and then the strap used to keep coming off, and then at times I felt, maybe I want to try the iWatch to see if the data is accurate or to I just want to compare the two. So I have the Whoop as well, and I might go back to it, but the last couple of months I've been using the iWatch. Yeah.
I see. Okay. And biggest pet peeves for Ramit?
I hate when I'm at dinner with someone and they make a lot of sound while eating. You know, when your your cutlery's like, you know, the sound of it hitting the plate,
the clanking.
Yeah. So that is one thing, and I think pretty much that's it. Or if someone is really awkward around you, that's when you're in an environment where you're forced to be on the table with someone you don't know very well, and so I think those two things.
Any pet peeves on court?
Not really. I don't have those many superstitions, or I'm not. I'm very easygoing in terms of my preparation, in terms of when I step on the court. So I don't feel like there's anything that disturbs me. Also, it's something I've practiced. You know, I want to stay out of things that could piss me off on court. So I don't think I have any pet peeve or something that I dislike or I don't want on court when I'm stepping on.
Yeah, but I think I'm going to wrap it up there, folks. Thank you, Ramit, for joining in. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you.